This is a channeled message from the angels about how you can thrive through the awakening events that are coming. I'm Ann Tucker, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I am a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm, and that means that I raise my awareness up as high as I can go, and then a little higher, and I connect, and the messages start to come through. And I transcribe them, and I share them here with you guys on YouTube. And today's message is about the awakening events specifically, and it's great for all of you out there who are empaths, who are have a tendency to feel the pain of the world. This is how they are suggesting that we shift in order to move through this in a way that actually lifts us up. So I hope you enjoy the message. Before I start, I would love to invite you to join me for Peace Bathing, which is coming up this upcoming Sunday. I do this once per month, and it is a live healing session that we do as a group. It's a lovely process. Take us through this with the angels, and they raise you up into a higher vibration, and they are bringing in the vibration of peace, helping you to kind of drop away all of the stuff, all of the entanglements of your earthly life, helping you to hold that higher frequency, which is a great way to help move you through the events that are coming. These sessions are cumulative. So, but I hope you can join me this Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And if you'd like to join, it's at my website, anntucker.com. So I'll put the link below in the description box, and here is today's message. We say you are wondering how you can thrive within the context of what is happening external to yourselves. How can you bring your conscious level up to a height of being where you can feel yourselves fully separate from what is trespassing around the self, yet united within your heart, one mind, one calling upward to God? So they go on to say, here we say you are beginning to find the traces of methods of wisdom, the traces of methods of being and enduring, but thriving is one step farther. More at peace, more wisdom, less concern for your happening, and more enjoyment of it. So they're really saying that it's more than just like, okay, how are we, grit and bear it? How are we going to get through these next couple of years of difficulty? And they're saying, no, let's really think about not just surviving, right? They're saying you're already beginning to find the traces of methods of being and enduring. So how can we sort of be? How can we be in our own space? How can we endure what's going to come to get to the other side of what's going to be amazing? They're saying, nope, thriving is one step further than that. More at peace, more wisdom, less concern for your happening, and more enjoyment of it. So how do we get to that space as we're going to really all the time, right? Including during whatever hardships are on the horizon. So they say, now we have this as our aim, how to rise into being fully present as you are, ascending through the darkest days, how to remain and grow within a context of hopeful happening, of all things leading upward and becoming more of what is, how to stay positive in mind frame and attitude when all things around the self are happening in juxtaposition to what is now determined and expected, for change will be brought. And this part here, when they say, okay, how to stay really positive when everything that you know and everything that you plan on and all of this sort of the structures of our life that give us comfort, when all of those are at risk, when all of those are falling away. Like think about during COVID, when if you have kids that are involved in things and they have certain rituals, like the high school prom. Nobody got to have their high school prom. Nobody got to have their the regular dance recitals or soccer games or the things that things that we think of as being a life. Right? Things that we sort of the benchmarks of like, oh, these are all the things that kids get, even birthday parties, right? Like you got to do those differently during COVID. And all of these things, these expectations, people were resentful and unhappy that they didn't get to have these things, right? It was like, well, I missed out. I didn't get to have this or that or do it this way. And they're saying that how do we stay in this idea when all of the components we normally think of as being a life that maybe we're attached to, right? Like think about all the people who got married during the pandemic, and maybe they had ideas, really strong ideas about, I want my wedding to look this way. And then the pandemic happened, and that was not going to happen, right? Like they didn't get to do it the way they wanted to do. So there might be all of these ways of living and ways of marking our lives and patterns in our lives that we're used to having And what if we can't count on those anymore? Like, just like it is with COVID, but it could be in more aspects of life, right? It could be even bigger than that. And so they say, like, when, how do we stay in a positive mind from an attitude when all things around us are happening in juxtaposition to what is now determined and expected? For change will be brought. So things are going to be not what we expect. And how do we stay positive and happy when things are not what we expect? So, and hello for those of you who are just joining. And yes, the joys of essential oils. And oh my gosh, it's getting strong in here again. Luckily, it's like a really pretty smell. So if it's like soaking in my clothes, people are just going to think that I'm a really good smelling person. All right, on we go. So you can have the appearance of calm and centeredness. The feeling of it now rises, but it is not to pass as thus, not just in temperament do we require. We want to lift you higher, to feel what is occurring as a benefit to the self, to all that is, to humanity's purpose of being, to rise, to assume the throne of caring for all. Abundance will be felt from this space, and your wanderings, seen from above, feel gentle and profound in earth's place. So this, I feel, is like, this is where it's at right here. Is they're saying that I think we have been kind of striving up until now, this idea that we're trying to get to a place of calm, of centeredness, of like, okay, all that crazy can be out there, but I'm going to be in my own space. Like, that's how we've been talking about it. They're saying that's great, but that's just halfway there. Like, we want to take you past that. We want you to thrive, not just survive, not just be calm, not just feel okay, but to feel amazing. And they're saying, so it is not just in temperament that we require. So it's not just how we feel. It's not our temperament. It's not just our emotions that they're concerned about. They're saying, okay, take it a step beyond that. Now we want to lift you higher to feel what is occurring as a benefit to the self. So it's really shifting our mind frame is what they're trying to do, to reframe how we're seeing this whole thing, and saying that they want us to see what is occurring as a benefit to the self, to all that is, to humanity's purpose of being. And this is a lot, because we know that the stuff that is coming is not going to be easy for everyone. And there could be suffering and difficulty and hardship. And knowing that, how do we stay in a place where we are feeling that this is good for everyone? Because we're going to look at it and say, you know what, it's not good for that person who just had some really horrible hardship. So, how do we get into a mind frame where we really feel like it is good for everyone? And they say the idea is for us to rise to assume the throne of caring for all. So it's shifting our perspective away from the way we think of things on earth and moving it to a place, to the way that we think of things from the spirit plane, that where we see the bigger picture and we see humanity and we understand. We don't get caught up in the individual life. We get caught up in the soul purpose and the larger life of each person. And so we see what's happening is for the benefit of everyone, even if that means that some people go through difficulty. And this is an interesting thing. There is, in terms of culturally and in terms of the way we think of things from an earth perspective, there is the feeling that no one should suffer, that anybody that's suffering, that you should immediately help them. And then that is the spiritual thing to do, that is the thing that is, loving freely from the heart. If you see a person who's suffering, you should reach out and do what you can to help that person. And that is, I think, how we have all thought about things, especially all of us empaths out there, because you feel like when everybody's suffering, like, oh my gosh, I can't stand it. I'm feeling their suffering. I have to help them. So, but the spiritual perspective is not that. That idea that we have to help everyone, that no one should suffer, is an earth perspective. And the spiritual perspective is that everything happens for a reason. And that if somebody is suffering, there is something in that for them, that it's serving them in some way. And that doesn't mean that you can't help them, that you can't play a role, but to remove their suffering might be a disservice, that there could be something in that. Like, you could remove someone's suffering and they will turn around and recreate it. And you have seen that in your life over and over again. There's all these sayings about you can lead a camel to water, but you can't make it drink, right? You can't solve someone's problems for them. They have to work out their own stuff. So there's this lesson in the life that we live. There is a divine plan to it all. And it might look harsh and difficult, especially when you think about, I mean, like, there's really hard things that happen, on earth. And you can look at that and say, how in the world is that of benefit to anybody? How can that serve anyone? And we just have to raise up and recognize, like, see it from this upper perspective, and see it that no one likes to think of another soul being trapped in a karmic loop where it's really, really awful. But there's something in there that they have to resolve, and we can't fix it for them. So that's where they're getting at, is to, as we're sitting in this place of what's coming, to try as best we can to, as they say, to rise, to assume the throne of caring for all. So it's not just caring about the individual soul, it's caring about the big picture, and caring and seeing it from that spiritual perspective of, this is humanity's path. This is the path that we're all on. There's benefit in this for everyone. So, and you're saying, we'll rise to assume caring for all. This is so good, especially for us sensitive empaths. Yes, right? I am right there with you guys. Like, I am the one that goes into the room and immediately notices who is feeling excluded and who is feeling lonely, and how can I help them? Right? Like, I am there too. And yeah, and they're saying, like, hey, this is like where we need to get to is a different level. Like, we need to release the earthly imprint that it is our job to help everybody, and instead move up to a space where we recognize the spiritual perspective and the wisdom of what is, and the way that things are laid out for our benefit. And that just like any loving parent says no, right? The most loving parent that there is the one that provides boundaries for their children and provides learning opportunities for their children, and doesn't do it for them all the time, right? That restrains themselves and lets the child have their life. And that's what the source does for us. That's what God does for us, right? So it can be hard because it hurts your heart. It can be hard. I know it is. So anyways, let's go on. They say, you can be here with ourselves. Feel the meandering time, taking pleasant sightings of how your arrival is determined. It beckons from here, this place of sound, construction, and thought. You thrive in your awakening here above the fray. So this is really where they're saying that getting here into this mind frame, getting into this perspective of seeing it the way that they do. And it's not that they don't have compassion for us, because you know that they do. And they hurt too when we suffer. They don't like to see us suffer, but they will never intervene if it's not in our highest and best good, right? They're like that loving parent, right? That wants to help us. They never want us to suffer so much that it takes us backward on our path. They always want to have those guarding rails on there, but they will let us fail. So they say we thrive there in our awakening, just above the fray. So they want us to move up to that more spiritual perspective. They say how to achieve it. You will find your manner lifted by your own worthy contemplation. Feel in yourself a willing participant in what unfolds. Resist not the passing of what occurs. Instead, feel the divine nature of all things and see your passage through it not as resistance, not as carving out a life for self among the branches and brambles of difficulty. No, now it is to be seen as a flow of life participation, one of glee and joy, of trouble and circumstance, all for benefit. To ride among ourselves and feel what occurs as lifting, as a vibration of peaceful coming, of heightened awareness and consideration for all that is, for heightened care to take. So, and I love that last bit. That it's interesting the way they phrase it. They say for heightened care to take. So they're saying that for all of us who want to take care of everyone, to help anybody who needs helping, they say this is a kind of heightened care to take. Right? When we're taking care, but from a heightened perspective, from seeing what is and not resisting. And the resisting is the key here. And that's really what they're getting at, is that when we see another person suffering and we feel like we have to go in and solve that suffering, we are in resistance to their life path. We're in resistance to their experience of earth. And like I said, doesn't mean that you can't be an angel for someone else. That's how Spirit speaks through us often, is to come through us and have us help another person. And so if you get that inspiration, take it. Like, please take it. Awesome. But I'm just talking about those moments when you feel like, when you just see like anybody who's suffering and you immediately take it on yourself as like, oh my gosh, how can I be happy when there are people suffering in the world? And you know what I'm talking about. When you feel like, I remember when my children were little, and they were babies when I was nursing my children. I went through this whole phase where I could not see a hungry person, animal, plant, or anything without crying. It was just like all the maternal instincts would come up, and I would, like, TV shows, there'd be like starving children somewhere. I would be sobbing, be like, I must go feed them now. So yeah, anyways, this is speaking to me as well. And I think it's probably talking to you too. So you're saying, I love this discernment and the idea of earth versus spiritual laws, that everyone needs to take personal responsibility and resolve our own stuff, no one else's. Yeah, right? Yes. That's beautifully said. Yes. Okay. So they're saying it's all about our resistance, that when we resist, and it could be resisting the things that we want, like the things that we are, the patterns we were talking about, like, oh, I didn't get to have this experience, like my life used to look this way, I expected it to go this, I wanted my wedding to look this way, I wanted my prom to look this way, and it's that resistance of our expectations not being met about what our life is going to be, and all the structures of life that we thought were going to be a certain way. They want us to release that resistance, and then also release our resistance to feeling like to the idea of that all suffering is bad, right? That some suffering serves a purpose. And I know that I as I say that, I feel like, what about the children? What about, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel it. I do. I really do. And yet, like, we know that when people choose to come to the earth plane, they know what they're signing up for. When people come into an abusive situation, those parents, that situation, the hardest ones, like, there's something there. There's something there that, and it could be they're stuck in a horrific karmic loop, and maybe it is a situation where there's going to be a person who shows up as that angelic intervention and helps that person. And I hope so, right? I want that very badly. But I'm also saying that there is perfection in all things, even the worst things. You're saying, again, such discernment between higher sense of help, the idea of it being resistance. Yeah. Right. I know that our helping is resistance. There you go. Boom. Right. I know. I feel it too. So, okay. They go on to say, resist not what is passing. Resist not the future form of what is now becoming. Feel instead you are not part of that which folds and transforms. You are above with ourselves, watching now, observing. Even from within you are watching, knowing that earth turns and creates anew, and all unfolds as is passing. And you are well, you are here, you are safely held. And that speaks for everyone. We are all safely held. But it's really about this resistance, resisting what's coming. And that would be feeling, the really letting yourself sink into, because if all the stuff that they have told us, if all of this comes to pass, there will be a lot that's going to be really difficult to process. And how do you process that and still be okay, and still keep your vibration high, and still have faith in God and all of the things? And I think it's really about not resisting the transformation and having faith that everything is unfolding with purpose. And it's saying, resist not the future form of what is becoming, what is now becoming. Feel instead that you are not part of that which folds and transforms, that the earth is going to be changing and folding and transforming all around you. And you can take this higher perspective and not be caught up in all of that, and see it all as divinely led. Yeah. So, okay. So they go on to say, this level of detachment from what is to come and what has been reduces the friction you feel. Release it now. Feel your absolving. Ride the wave of change and feel yourself carried within it, not bound down to the passage you know now, but lifted, released from knowing and perceiving, accepting, allowing circumstances to unfold, letting the transformation happen without regret or worry. Thrive in your being above the chaos and discern your reality flowing through time, changing, becoming, unfolding as it will. And this really brings to mind for me the shift from the karmic path to the dharmic path. And I think this is really what it's all about, is that as we're shifting through this awakening, we are talking about leaving behind our karma. And moving into the dharmic path. And if you think about, like, okay, the dream symbol, there's many, but one of the dream symbols for being on the dharmic path, and one of the symbols for it is being on a roller coaster with no track, where the roller coaster is like a crazy ride, and there may be a part in the roller coaster where the track is missing altogether, and the rail car has to like leap over to the other side. So if you've had that dream, it's a dream about the dharmic path, and it's a common dream. So lots of people will have that symbol in their dream, but it's specifically about the dharmic path. But think about what it means. Is that if you're on the crazy roller coaster ride, that the track is non-existent, it's all about trust and allowing that. In that case, there's no control, right? You are not like on a regular roller coaster. You're on this tightly locked in track, and it's very predictable. You can see where it's going to go. You can count the loops, like what's going to happen. That's the karmic path. The dharmic path is, okay, take me where you will. Let's just go, right? There's no track. I don't know where I'm going. And I would definitely say that is one of the biggest lessons that the angels have been working with me to learn. Like, think about, for me, when I first started doing the angelic frequency series, I was like, they told me, you're going to channel these frequencies, and it was going to be 90 minutes, which for me at the time I started doing this that was a long time to hold these super intense frequencies. And I had to grow into that, but I was nervous about that for sure. And they said, people are going to come from all over the world. I didn't know how that was going to happen. And they said, you're just going to go do it. And we're not going to tell you what's going to happen. So, and I'm a planner. I'm a person who likes to have everything organized and likes to have a schedule. And I know I'll read, like when I do a presentation, I lay it, I've got my slides, I'm a planner. So to show up to do a thing for 90 minutes that I wasn't totally sure, I didn't know what was going to happen, who was going to be there, all of that was a massive exercise in that roller coaster with no track. It was completely like I was just go into trance and let them do what they're going to do and just trust that it's going to be what it's going to be. And sure enough, like they showed up, they did the 90 minutes, like almost to the mark, right? And it was amazing. Like it was amazing. It was way better than if I had planned it, it would have been not a fraction of what it was by just letting them come through me, by getting out of the way. Like once I got out of the way, then the magic could happen. And so that has been, that's been my lesson over and over and over again, is how do I get out of the way and let go of my need to plan and just be in the flow of life. And they're saying that is where we need to go. The resistance, our resistance, like saying we want it to be this way. Our resistance to what happens to the patterns in our own life, that we want it to be a certain way. We have expectations about how it has to unfold, or our expectations about other people, about what kind of experience they have to have. That are we in a place where we're saying, well, they're suffering, they can't suffer because it makes me feel bad, right? Like, what is that? So they're saying, no, release it, let go of whatever it is that we're in resistance to, and be in that state of allowing and letting it flow. And that's our way to help us get up to that higher perspective, that spiritual perspective of really understanding that everything that's unfolded in this earth school, everything is for the greater benefit of humanity, right? And you're saying, again, such discernment between a higher sense of help, the idea of it being resistance. Yeah, I think it's such a big, like, aha moment. And you're saying, are there steps to do to learn to stay in the higher vibration, especially when things get real? That is a really good, like in terms of specific steps. what I'm actually just hearing is they're saying it, because I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And they're like, no, it's not. They're telling me don't ask that, because they're saying that it is, the whole point is to not control. The whole point is to open and to allow. And that they're saying that if I had specific steps, then we would be controlling. We'd be like, I'm at step 1, I'm at step 2, I'm at step 3. And they're saying, they just open and to be aware. It's about awareness. It's awareness of noticing yourself when you are in resistance and when you're feeling the need to control, when you're feeling the need for things to turn out a specific way. And it makes a lot of sense. Like, how can we move into something so dramatically different as this new state of consciousness if we're tied to things being the way that they've been, right? And especially because we are creating our own reality. So if we're locked in the way that things were, how can we open up to the way to something we have no idea what to expect, right? Where it's the roller coaster with no track. How do we, when we don't even know in our bodies how to feel that it's about, we just have to allow and trust. Yeah, so thank you for asking that, because that would be exactly where my head would go, is what are my steps I take? And I think that's that. And maybe there, like, I can certainly ask and see, okay, is there some guidance to how do we open to this? But I think it is my natural inclination would be like, oh, let's get a checklist. Have I done this? Have I done this? They're saying, nope, don't do that. Don't get a checklist. More about being open. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Yeah, especially like you said, especially when things get real. Okay, here they go on to say, here it is. You are empowered as always to create what you have, to make life circumstances flower on your behalf. But friction folds, restrains, keeps you back, locks into what was, and what was is becoming untenable. It is changing, rising, and destruction is at hand. When you let go, release your worry, have not an attachment to what has been, you are open to receive and allow, and life flows through you. This is essential for your being, for your creative life force to emanate, most true, a reflection of your higher awareness. We entreat you now to live a life of release and entrain to what will become. Let life unfold, and happiness knows no bounds, for there are no limitations where friction and resistance do not hold you back. So, okay, you guys, another deep and meaningful message. And I hope that resonated for you guys. I know that there's some hard stuff in there. I know that for some of you, it's really gonna strike a chord about world suffering. And I know it's a hard step to make, to say, okay, it's okay. A certain amount of suffering, that is a path, a choice that some people are on. And I'm with you. I don't want them to stay there. I also know that angels are work through us all the time, and that humans can help humans, and angels can work through humans to help other humans. And then that is a big part of what this whole thing is all about, is how do we help each other? So I want to say, yes, help, but don't take on the responsibility of the whole world onto yourself, and recognize that there is a master plan and that we are being held, and we need to move up to that higher perspective and release and allow and trust that everybody is getting what they need. All right. You're saying that was awesome. Such good learning for us empaths. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for that. Cause I put this out there and I'm like, it hurts. And I don't want you guys to feel bad about the fact that you care. It's a wonderful thing to care. How do I come out into the world and say you shouldn't care about the people who are suffering? That's a terrible message. But no, I get it. And I hope you guys do too. I understand what they're saying, and it's hard. It's hard for us. It's hard not to feel all of that. You know what I mean? But hopefully you guys understand where they're coming from. So yeah, so you're saying things are so difficult now. I feel so segregated within my own family. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It is really hard, especially because so many of us are rising so quickly. I think people are making incredible progress right now. And it's like either you're on the train or you're not. So the people who are not, then it's like that distance just grows. It magnifies so quickly. And it's like, how do you connect with the people that you've cared about? So I'm sorry, my heart goes out to you. And hopefully you will find groups like this one and other people who are right there with you, where you can feel belonging. Let's see, it's empowering others to allow them their own life path, the ultimate gift of love. Yes, right? Yes. I think that's why I feel it with my own kids, my own kids have their own, they definitely are on their own unique paths. And I feel it's so much about giving them space to become who they are and letting them have their moments of failure. And even, in moments when I feel like, okay, my kids, and maybe they're making a choice that I know, and I might say, hey, this choice might not go the way you think it's going to go. And here are my concerns. And here's why I think it might not be a great idea. And they might choose it anyways, and I have to let them. And that is literally just happened with one of my kids, where they made a choice and I was like, don't make that choice. And they did it and I allowed, and now they're like, okay, I want to undo that choice. So you just gotta let it happen. You know what I mean? Um, okay, you're saying care without attachment. Yeah, absolutely. And you're saying thank goodness for this group. Oh, thank you. I am very, very glad you're here. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. It feels wonderful to be able to share this message with a group like you, where I know you guys are taking this in the way that it's meant to be taken. So thank you so much. And yeah, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. If you want to join me for peace bathing on Sunday, don't miss out. It's going to be awesome. And you can join me at anntucker.com. You just click on the peace bathing thing. And they're fantastic sessions. I hope to see you there. Have a great weekend, you guys. I will see you next Friday. Bye-bye. Hopefully my office will be less stinky.